says recordings hasn't
It should say we're
uploading
live now.
recordings.
Okay, do you see we're live now?
Oh, you're counting on yours, yes.
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and play our intro and then we'll get started business as usual.
Welcome to the PSL Dentist Podcast, where healthy smiles meet real talk. Hosted by Port St. Lucie's very own Dr. Stephen Blank, the one dentist who's been making the Treasure Coast smile for decades. From one-visit crowns to clear aligners, Botox, and even lifting threads, yep, your dentist does that too. So sit back, open wide, not literally please, and get ready to sink your teeth into today's episode.
Small strategic cosmetic treatments can create big changes. And today we're breaking down one of the most popular options. Welcome back, everyone. Frederick here, co-host and producer in the studio with Dr. Stephen Blank, your Port St. Lucie dentist. Dr. Blank, always great to be here with you. Shall we get right into it?
What great to see you today, Frederick, and be in the studio with you.
Awesome. So, Dr. Blank, to start us off, can you tell us what is a mini smile makeover?
Wonderful question to ask. Many people are interested in this, or they're not always aware that it's an option. They always think everything or nothing. So a mini makeover, for me, in my hands, is when a patient just needs some of their teeth fixed up. Typically, we're looking at the middle 4 teeth on the top, or sometimes on the bottom as well. When I do a mini makeover for a patient, we're not trying to change the color of all of their teeth. We're trying to do something to make the front 4 teeth look better, have a nice natural appearance, but blend in with the rest of the teeth. If I did 4 front teeth in bright white and everything else wasn't, it wouldn't look very good. So the mini makeovers are when you're happy with the color of your teeth, but the front edges are beat up or old fillings are showing and they just need a little bit more than what your dentist can do with a filling. That's when we start talking about mini makeovers with all ceramic crowns, or in some of the real conservative cases, just veneers on the middle teeth.
Gotcha. So you mentioned fillings, you talked about the color of the tooth. So what types of cosmetic concerns are typically addressed in a mini smile makeover?
Well, it can be anything from minor rotations of the teeth, where orthodontics is probably overkill, worn edges, especially when for females, when the edges wear flatter, you start to develop more corners instead of rounded edges. So the smile starts to look more harsh. It looks more like a male smile. And they don't know why they look different, but some people might think, that person's always grumpy. And it's not grumpy. It's a flat smile with teeth that are more worn. But to lay public, they don't know that. They just go, that person doesn't look happy. So some worn teeth, rotated teeth. When we had past cavities and things as a teenager and they had bonded fillings at 15 and then again at 25 and maybe now they're 30 or 40 and their fillings are getting dark again and they're just not doing the job. So a new filling might not look so great. It's better than a hole in a tooth, but they want to take it up a notch and have a tooth that looks more ideal. So that's what we're looking at.
Gotcha. And how does this approach differ from, say, a full smile makeover?
That's a good question, because on a full smile makeover, we have more goals that are involved. Typically, we're doing a lot of teeth, or maybe almost all the teeth, and we're doing that because they're worn out. So we have patients where their eye teeth, the cuspid teeth, are worn flat, and instead of chewing where they use that as guidance for biting, they can chew more like a cow in big flat circles because their teeth are just worn away. And the more they wear, the more they wear down other teeth. So it becomes a cycle where they're trapped on the backside of good function. So that's a full makeover when we need to do things like that. On the mini makeover, we're looking at posterior teeth, all the big ones in the back, that are still essentially good teeth with good sharp edges, maybe a little bit of wear, but not much. And they just need that cosmetic tweak on the front. And a lot of people will tell me, I'm doing this because, I sit close to other people at work, or I have a one-on-one job where I'm interviewing people or talking with them, or I'm in sales, and I just don't like the way I come across when I smile, or their next reunion is coming up and they just
Yeah.
want to look like they did before, not the worn out smile.
Gotcha.
Imagine
Gotcha.
that.
Yes. Yes. Wow. So when you're doing these mini makeovers, what treatments are most commonly included? Like, bonding, whitening, contouring, or anything else?
Yeah, the difference in bonding and ceramic restorations is like day and night. The tooth colored bonding materials are wonderful to fill in cavities on the top of a back tooth, or even little spaces between the front teeth if we have a cavity there. When we want to cover an entire surface, the bonding materials can be used, but I look at that as more of a short-term answer because they'll soak up stain and lose their luster. They don't hold the shine like porcelain that's baked in an oven. It's the difference of like plastic versus glass. In the ceramic restorations, the different brands like Emax and Zirconia are all literally a type of glass that's all fired in an oven to make them. The bonded fillings are all resins, so it's with different filler particles, but they don't have the same luster. We can polish them up real well, but as soon as you start brushing your teeth at home, it can lose some of that shine. They'll last a long time. They'll look nice, but not to the same level. I have done that for patients. I had a young lady that was going to be getting married, and her little lateral incisor, the second tooth over, was rotated 90 degrees. I said, "Oh, let's talk about orthodontics." She says, "Let's talk about my wedding next week." It's like, "Oh, we don't have time for orthodontics." So we did bonding on that by reshaping the tooth some and then adding to it to make it appear as if it were straight. And that had no lab time, one visit, done. So that's when bonding materials can work. And it was a single tooth situation with the challenge for me as the doctor to make it blend in with the other teeth. We don't want people to say, "Oh, I see you got your tooth fixed." We want it to say, "Oh, you have a nice smile." So that was the challenge on a case like that. So bonding has its place, but the long-term solution in my hands is to go with ceramics. And then we have the difference of, do we do just the front of the tooth, or do we wrap all the way around to the back? And that depends on the patient. What's present there? Do they have a bunch of old fillings that take up a lot of space already, where covering the tooth would be better for the patient? Or is it a mostly natural tooth that's just worn down and just needs to be added to? So if we're going to add to them, veneers are a wonderful method of doing that, where we're adding to the front and we wrap around enough so that the seams are facing backwards where the public doesn't see it. But with the part where you put your tongue up top on the inside, that's still your tooth on a veneer. When we do a crown, we wrap it up. So I reduce the tooth on the front, the sides, and the back, and then we make a cover that goes right up over the whole tooth, and that's cemented on, and it's nice and glassy all over.
Wow, that is an amazing process. So you kind of touched on this when you talked about the lady who had a wedding and you fixed up her tooth, and the process seemed to be fairly quick. But my question to you now is, so how long does a typical mini smile makeover take from start to finish?
A mini smile makeover in my office is either 2 visits or 3. On the more complicated ones, more rotations, more tooth position changes, adding length to teeth, I do that in 3 visits, where the first visit is what I call a smile design. So we discuss our treatment goals together, and then I use bonding resin, but without the adhesive, to just add some material to the tooth, trim it up, make it look a little better, and get my edge position correct. And then I scan that in and save that. Once I have that saved in my computer, I can now design teeth over that, or have the lab design them. I like doing a lot of that myself, but it can be done either way. And then we have a position where we know this is where I want the biting edge in the front to back dimension, and up and down, and how I want the middle two to compare to the next two, if I want them taller or shorter. And we design a virtual smile makeover. That virtual computer smile makeover goes from the computer to my 3D printer, and we print out a model. Now I've got a model of how you're going to look when I'm done, but we haven't done it to you yet. And I take an impression of that model, or I scan that one, and I can use that to create my temporaries. So I have to have a way of transferring our design to our computer that's going to make the project, either in-house or at the laboratory. So we digitize that, and then I use that to create a temporary. So when the patient comes in, visit number 2, we have these models already and an impression of them perhaps, and then I can prepare their teeth to accept the new dentistry. And I use that digital model, an impression of that, to make their temporaries. So now they get temporaries that look like the final restoration. They're made in plastic resin, and but it allows us to test drive the smile. That's visit 2, and that visit's usually a couple hours, where we prepare the teeth, design the temporaries, and then they go home looking like their new smile. And then we can tweak that. If we think the teeth need to be a little longer or a little shorter, we make our notes, and that information goes to the laboratory. And then they can either copy what we did or add the enhancements. And then the third visit is the delivery day. Temporaries come off, new teeth go in, we check them for fit, color, shape, and if the patient and I are both happy, we sign off on it and we bond them into place, and off they go, chomp, 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 with their new smile.
Wow, what a process. That's amazing. So you kind of answered my next question, speaking on the patient's new smile. But the question is, what kind of results can patients realistically expect?
Well, when I do my mock-up is when the patients really start to get the idea of how this is going to look. When I do the smile design and I put the resin on their teeth and then reshape it, they get to see what it's going to look like, and their expectations can be matched, to reality at that moment. They can say, okay, this is what we can do. I'm a little limited here, or we can do whatever we want. How bright do you want to get? How much do we want these to blend in? Do we have plans to do more teeth later, or are we limiting this to the areas that we planned originally, just the middle 4? So their expectations, if they're realistic at the beginning before we start, are met consistently. If patients only want to do 4 teeth but want the whitest smile in town, they're going to have a problem. That's when we have to have that heart-to-heart at the beginning that this is not going to work well. We see that with new people in the news media. They get their front 4 or 6 teeth done, and that's all they can either afford or think is needed. And then they go on the air and smile big, and everything back here is dark, and it looks like they're missing their back teeth. And they were just fine before, but when you put Snow White in the front, it makes the back ones disappear. And they come back and you can see when they've gotten the rest of them done. This is what dentists do when we watch the news. We look at the teeth. Like your smile is a great one.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And that was some really good info. So with all that said, I do want to ask, who's the ideal candidate for this type of cosmetic enhancement?
Well, ideally, it's people that have wear on the middle 4 teeth. Either they've clenched or grind in the front to back motion where the side teeth are all still good, or just chewing or cavity issues in the past, and they just don't like the way the teeth are looking. I also have to mention we need to start with a good foundation. So we're always interested in the patient's gum health and having a very healthy patient before we begin the cosmetic type of care. Because if we don't have that, things change afterwards. Gums go up, up, up. It looks like, just doesn't look happy if we have red gum tissue around teeth. It should be nice and pink color and soft color, not swollen looking. So as long as we start with a healthy mouth, we can get really nice results, and then they last a long time. I don't want my patients coming back year after year, and we see them in the hygiene room and pat them on the shoulder and say bye-bye, that they're just doing fine, and their smile makeover is still looking good 10 years later, 15 years later. And that's a good feeling for the patient and for me. Amazing.
Yes. Well, Dr. Blank, I just want to say thank you so much for breaking that down clearly and thoroughly. We do appreciate the informative explanations. And everyone watching at home, thanks for joining us, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you, Frederick.
That's a wrap for the PSL Dentist Podcast, where smiles are brighter and laughs are always cavity-free. To keep your smile in shape, call 772-878-7348 or visit psldentist.com to schedule your appointment with Dr. Stephen Blank, the one-stop doc for smiles, beauty, and everything in between. Until next time, keep flossing, keep smiling, and keep listening.